What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of having the founder of DLG Co. And I mean, in a roundabout way, my teammate from Matt Baker's Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, Jessica De La Garza. Jess, how you doing?
Guys, pretty good. Just indoors as usual.
Yes, yes. And it's funny because these are things that I mean, pre-March, you said you're indoors and you're like, what are you doing out there? Come outside, blah, 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 whatever. And now it's just like, it's become the status quo.
To be inside. Like, I'm happy for today because I had an excuse to put makeup on.
There you go.
And I
It's
had an
those
excuse
small
to get
victories.
out of my pajamas.
Yeah, it's those small victories though, right?
I'm like, what? I get to do my hair a little bit?
Yeah, dude. I get so hyped to do laundry because we actually I have to go to a laundry mat. That is like my 2 times a month that I get to go out and see what's up. It's weird.
I guess I'm lucky in the sense because I do have a dog, and so I do have to take her out every morning. So I'm forced to get sunlight in that way, and I'm happy that she makes me go outside. Um, I never thought I would have been so happy to see the mailman. Like, because then now I have an excuse to go outside.
No, 100%. I am that way too. I see him and I almost feel like a dog in essence, right? And I'm like I'm patting my foot, and like he's here. Oh yeah, like yeah,
You're like, what
it's
package did I order today?
yeah. Oh, that's even better. The Amazon stuff that like stuff that has come in the last couple months that I can't even remember I ordered that.
The only downside to that is having to always break down the boxes, because then you just get like this accumulation of boxes.
Yeah, I actually have never been more enthralled to know that, oh, they're going to be shipped separately from different distribution centers. I'm like, yes, all bubble wrap packaging. Yay, huzzah.
It's awful. And then when they ask you if you want to group all of your items in smaller orders, like as they're coming in, I'm like, yes, please stop sending me boxes now.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. But I mean, okay, so first off, I mean, you're a female and you started training in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Had you um, had any kind of aspiration to do any type of combat sports, and what was the thing that led you to do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu?
So my friend got me into kickboxing. And then from kickboxing, it led me into Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And I wanted to know how to defend myself a little bit more. Um, and so I did Brazilian Jiu Jitsu for a couple of years. I'm still only a blue belt. I haven't been back in quite some time now, probably a couple of years. But I love Brazilian Jiu Jitsu because when you're there, you literally cannot worry about anything else. Otherwise, you're going to get choked out.
No, 100%, 100%. And that happens, and most people think like, oh, you just rage. Like I've got so much pent up anxiety and aggression. I just need to let it out. And guess what? That'll last you all of 2 minutes of that 6 minute round, and you're gonna get choked out 3 times, armbar 12, and maybe a possible knee bar, depending on your belt level, in that 2 minutes of rage.
And it's amazing the feeling of when you actually get a technique right and land it on someone. Like my favorite was a bow and arrow choke. That is by far my favorite choke ever. Probably because I didn't stay in it long enough to learn more complicated stuff, but that was the easiest one for me to land. It just kind of became my thing.
No, for sure. Now you talked about your kind of your sojourn from your hiatus from jiu-jitsu. How did that come about?
So I want to say in October-ish of 2017, we were training, and it was someone that was not from our academy was training with us, and we were doing like the pass and defend, and she couldn't pass my guard, but she dropped all of her weight like on my wrists, as like you know, like you can use your hands to hold someone off of you as you're trying to pass. And so it became like a compound fracture and it just snapped my wrist. I ended up having to have 3 pins put in. I had surgery, and then I had to go through like physical therapy and all of that stuff. So during that downtime, I didn't go to jiu-jitsu because I don't, it's just kind of hard when you get to see everyone else rolling and you just have to sit there. And I was so terrified of injuring my wrist again because it was so painful. So during that downtime, I started seeing like events pop up on Facebook for open mic nights. And so then that's kind of when I discovered comedy. And then that was, I want to say, in the first open mic I went to was in March of 2018. And so by April, then I started doing like open mic nights. I started performing.
That's amazing. Now, I mean, I love game like the game or the theory behind like outliers. If this specific chain of events didn't happen, the outcome wouldn't be what we know it today for being, right?
I want to say at the time that I broke my wrist, I was training pretty heavily, probably at least 4 to 5 nights a week. And you just kind of get so involved in it, and all of your friends are there. And if I had seen an open mic night while I was training, I probably been like, oh no, that's like during training time. I'm not going to be able to make it because that was my priority at the time. Um, but since I had the downtime, I was like, okay. And I probably would have never imagined myself ever going to one and then wanting to do it had I not broke my wrist. Because it
Man,
kind of
that's
changes your perspective a little bit.
no, absolutely. And again, I mean, you go from like one tough combat sports. I mean, I'm a forever white belt, right? Having trained at Mats, then Fight Academy in Pasadena, and it's it's something that you're always evolving and whatever. And I mean, it almost invokes your total commitment, and like you become tunnel vision on the goal, right? And I mean, I remember even the time that I was there, and one of the reasons why I left Bakersfield was, I got laid off, right? And one of my buddies, we were, he happened to be a blue belt as well, and he was training, and we would go on lunch breaks, and we would go down to the game room, right? Because we were working on Truxton Extension, go down to the game room and, do 90 minutes of jiu-jitsu, go back to work, kind of wet nap ourselves or whatever, do another 4 hours, you know?
I think but did you train after you left? Or
Yes.
did you
So
find a
I
new
think
spot to train at?
there was about a month where I received a, kind of like your severance, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I had a, I had a bit of money, right? Like the bills were covered for that month, right? So I just went, you know what? Not only am I going to do morning classes, I'm going to do night classes. And the guy that I was training with, he actually lived in, he was traveling to Bakersfield for work and then training jujitsu, but he actually lived in Palmdale. So I, I took the advantage of going to both morning and evening classes. So, in a 6 months time, I was doing like 5 to 7, maybe 8, classes a week, and just nutty, right? Get laid off. And what ended up happening is I had saved up. There was like a IBJJF tournament, white belt, like, tournament. And I was like, I had saved like the $200 for that and got laid off. And then I was just like, damn, this $200 for a tournament doesn't seem great right now. And then right along that, Matt was like, "Oh, John Jock is coming up. John Jock Machado and Jay Zabalos are coming up for a seminar. It's
I went to
$50."
that seminar.
So we were there when Jill got her black belt,
That's
right?
funny.
When Jill got her black belt, right?
Yeah.
See, so we didn't like.
Wait, no, no, no.
Oh,
That must have been a different one. Because
okay.
was that at like BBJJ or at the other school?
No, it was actually at the mothership.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that day, Jill actually got promoted by John Jock to black belt. So I was there then. So what basically happened was I was just like, okay, here's a $50, seminar versus a $200,
Hmm.
entry fee. So I was just like, let's do the seminar and whatever. And you know, that was it. And then that ended up being my song before I moved back down here to LA. And but just like fond memories, right? That you have. But again, if not for these certain things, like if I probably continue to do BJJ seriously, I probably wouldn't be doing podcasting. So there's that.
It's so time consuming. And it just seems like everybody falls into like where, especially if you go into competition mode, because right before I broke my wrist, I had just competed at Jiu-Jitsu World League, but as a white belt. And then I got promoted. And then with my blue belt, that's what I had wanted to compete at IBJJF. Yeah. But I didn't get to because that's when I broke my wrist.
Oof, oof. I mean, and, okay, and what was that like, right? Obviously, having to, like getting into the competition mode, right? And then having this freak accident happen, and now you're not there. And not only are you not doing the one competition, but you might have to take a hiatus from the sport. Like, what mentally and physically were you going through, in that time?
Physically, it was a lot of pain. The surgery was just really rough. I had never really had a surgery before that, so I didn't know what to expect. Emotionally, I was depressed because you go from like seeing all of your friends who are training with you on practically a daily basis because you train all through the week, and then on the weekends it's like you go on Saturday, later in the like early afternoon, morning, afternoon, and it becomes kind of like an all day thing almost, or at least half of your day. So it made me extremely sad, and I really had some time to like self reflect. And that's when I discovered yoga. So I started doing yoga a lot more for people who were injured and like couldn't use their arms. Um, so I ended up still like staying in decent shape during that time, like right after the wrist, like the surgery and everything. But it was still emotionally very taxing. I would say that was the harder part, like the emotions and like the mental side of it versus the actual like physical therapy did suck though. The first time I went to physical therapy, I almost passed out from the pain because it's basically like you're fusing your wrist back, like those bones back together. And so the joints, you probably can't see it, but the pins were like right there. So it's like right where you're moving. I still can't, I don't have like the full extension of it. I can't do like when you try to do a push up, you know how your hand goes flat. My
Yeah,
on that wrist, it does not. I never got that back. It never went back that far, which is fine because I hate push-ups anyway.
10 points there. I'm right there with you. No, and Antoine Hood, for Flawless Victory MMA said two of my favorite people. Nah,
Thanks,
you're
John.
one of ours. Just saying. Yeah, so shout out to Flawless Victory MMA. Um, oh, gosh, what's the town? What's the town? Are they Stallion Springs? Are they
Ridgecrest?
some Ridgecrest? There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Hopefully I didn't. I mean, glad I didn't shout out Pine Mountain Club as the home of Flawless Victory. So shout out to Antoine. And oh yeah, and subscribe to High Desert Pythons on YouTube if
Yes,
you.
I was just gonna
Yeah.
mention that.
Yes. So there you go. So that's two in one accord. Again, you guys should go over to High Desert Pythons on YouTube and
And get a
find
sneak
out
from
all cool
Antoine.
things. Yes, absolutely. So obviously, so you're going into comedy, right?
Mhm.
You try that open mic guy. Now, was that even in a thought in your brain to pursue? Like, I mean, that's so different, right?
It is so different, and for people that know me, I am pretty introverted. I'm not shy, but if I don't know you, I'm not just gonna like throw my whole personality on you. So to do comedy for me, I had honestly already been thinking about it. I didn't think that I would ever actually do it. It was kind of just like, oh yeah, I might try that someday. And like I had typed up some material on my computer, but it just stayed there. Like I wasn't actually ever gonna do it. It was just one of those things like I'll try it someday. But then I got roasted at the open mic that I went to by one of my favorite comedians, Andrew Boydston. He's called the Barstool Prophet. He's like one of my favorite comedians, and he's local to Bakersfield. And so after that is when it kind of like lit a fire in me. I was like, no. And then I kind of just like I wanted to roast him because he had roasted me. I grew up with all guys, so well, pretty much all guys because I was the first granddaughter. So I mean, my family like their love language is roasting. So I was like, no, I'm gonna come back and like try this. I didn't like have that type of confidence on stage the very first time. I'm pretty sure I had to have like 2 or 3 beers before I could even step on the stage. Um, but that's what I based my first ever set on was like that person roasting me. And that's what actually gave me like lit the fire to be like, I'm gonna try this. Like he was my reason to get on stage.
Now, does he know the story?
Oh yeah, he knows this story. And I
That
always
doesn't.
tell him that all of the guys probably regret him doing that too, because that's what got me started into comedy.
Yeah, yeah, and again, that means they're cannon fodder for you to literally, just chime in on it.
But no, he totally knows the story, and it was part of my set for quite some time.
That's so brilliant. That's so brilliant. This guy. He says that I had a Hulk Hogan moment. I almost flexed up and missed a pop. Yeah. So in terms of because Steven's asking, any recommendations for people interested in pursuing comedy?
Yeah, definitely. Once COVID is like out of the way, check out your local open mic. I mean, I don't know where he's from. I host an open mic at a comedy club that I'm a partner in called Room 82 in Bakersfield. Shameless plug. Uh, but that's usually on Sunday evenings. We're currently not holding open mics because of the pandemic and all of the fun stuff. But check out your local comedy scene wherever you're at. I'm sure you can find like an open mic night. Usually they're at like bars, or if you're in like bigger cities, you can just go to a comedy club that has an open mic night. And don't worry about being good. Everybody sucks.
Yeah. And he's saying yes. He's from beautiful Southern California. Well, here's the catch 22. The closest comedy club to me is actually the Ice House, which
Okay.
that's a legendary club. And
In the
I'm not
Pasadena.
funny. Yeah, that's in Pasadena. Yeah, so it's that's a rough road to sow. I'm just saying.
I mean, it doesn't really matter where you start. You just have to start. And when you tell people it's your first time, they're generally pretty welcoming, and the audience is like super nice about it. They're not just going to heckle you off the stage.
Yeah, that's a good thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like, yeah, because otherwise it could just be absolutely unnerving, like scared crapless.
And also, don't be an asshole. Like, don't like just pick on people in the audience just to do it because you think you're being funny if it's your first time. Like, do your actual material. Like, if you were working on something, or even because some people can go up there and just say stuff off the top of their head. I'm not one of those people, but some people can. So I would say once the pandemic and everything is clear, everyone's healthy, hit up your local open mic night.
No, 100%. Yeah, and that's something that it's crazy because LA used to be, or pre-pandemic, the pantheon for all things comedy, and some of like Rogan and Theo Vaughn and Joey Diaz, they're leaving the scene, and it's just like they're leaving the scene, leaving the state. It's crazy. Mm. Whoa.
What are some of your favorite comedians? And it doesn't have to be like right now.
George
Like
Carlin,
that occurred.
George Carlin for sure. Like hands down, that is my favorite comedian. He's just, I mean, the way that he could just, I guess, level with everybody, right? It didn't matter where he came from, what upbringing. Like there was truth in what he was saying, and whether it be George Carlin or Dick Gregory, those were some of the people that I was just like, I can't believe they're doing this like this.
Like speaking truth.
Yeah,
I love comics like that because they're using the platform in a brilliant way. Because to have that much of a reach and to use it like for good, it's awesome. I think
no,
my favorite. Have you heard of Mitch Hedberg?
yes, Mitch Hedberg, of course. My
Yeah,
goodness.
he was probably the first comic that I really knew um, was a comedian because I when I was little, like I watched like Mad TV and late night shows like that, but I didn't really know what it was. I knew that it was funny, but I didn't know exactly what it was. Like that it was a specific category and that the people in them were like comedians. They weren't just like sketch comedy people or sketch actors. Like they had their own stand-up routines.
Yeah, man, and a lot of people forget because unfortunately, Mitch, passed away what the
Mhm.
mid 90s, and really at his peak, and he doesn't. There are people that don't know the name, right? But
Yeah.
if you YouTube some of his material, and it's so good. It's so good. Like him and Bill Hicks, where I mean, literally comedians that were coming up on the scene, they would have to kind of dox each other and go like, "Hey, stop doing Mitch, stop doing Bill, because that's stop doing Hicks."
I love Mitch because he doesn't have like that super high energy. And he was always like not shy, but kind of nervous. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen some of his material where he literally turns his back to the audience and does his material. Like, for some reason, like, I love that. I'm like, we didn't even have to see your face and you were still funny. Like, you wore your sunglasses. We couldn't even see what you looked like and you were still hilarious.
Yeah, and that's crazy too because especially, I mean, it is a comedy, much like MMA movies or anything else. It's a form of entertainment, right? And a lot of selling happens via your facial expressions and your mannerisms and everything. When you can not just be deadpan, but literally like away from the audience, and people still get the gist of your jokes and your material. My goodness, like what a visionary.
He had such a brilliant delivery too because so many people like say his jokes. I still remember when he was on like that 70s show. Do you remember seeing that?
Yeah,
But he just had
absolutely.
a brilliant way of delivering things. That's what like made it funny because anyone can say his stuff, but if they don't deliver it the way that he did, it's not going to be funny anymore.
Yeah, it's funny. So there's like, obviously Mitch, there's Joey Diaz, there's um who else? Theo Vaughn, right?
Hmm.
Those comics that if said by anyone else but them, it's not funny, right? The words or the phrasing, none of it works. It's just uniquely suited for those people. They are unique, almost
Their
unicorns in a sense. You know,
It's like their personality is what imbues that and makes it funny. And
exactly.
Theo Vaughn has a very interesting way of speaking too. So that and his energy, I got to see him when he came to Bakersfield and he was hilarious. But he had such high energy.
Yeah, and when you listen, and it's weird because they often say, like in terms of like comics, right? You can't be a comic and come from the upper crust of society. I'm sure there have been people there, and I'll probably hear it in the comments, of course. But the most most comics, right? Just like most athletes, right? When they're their dad leaves the house or whatever, and they become this ultra crazy, athlete and whatever. Comedians a lot of times have to go through some crazy strife in their life to kind of go like, okay, I can figure out how to not cry in a fetal position. I can figure out how I can make this funny and make this like therapeutic for me and cathartic for me.
I think it depends on the person. For me, that's how I process life. I have to make fun of it or myself in order to just get through it. And I can see how a lot of other comedians are the same way. A lot of comedians have pretty dark sense of humor. Anthony Jeselnik, that's why I love him. He is extremely dark humor though. He talks about yeah.
100%. The turns that he goes, right, and you don't think it could get any darker, and it's like, oh wait, there's more. I mean, in that in that instance, I almost feel like he's like a infomercial, salesman, because it like, oh wait, there's more. Oh wait, there's more. You know.
For some reason, I tend to like comedians that are more low energy. And I think it's just because, not to say that I don't like comedians that have high energy, I do. But if you, for me, it's like, if you listen to the material, would you be able to say it without that type of energy and still get the laugh? That's what makes me appreciate like low energy comics a lot more, because like their like just their words are what is what's making you laugh.
No, 100%. Yeah, it's crazy, and I mean, somebody that doesn't get the love. Oh my gosh, it's Steven something. Oh, Stephen Root. Holy smoke, he was the king of deadpan. Like you wouldn't sell anything in his face. He would just do his material, and it would just get. He's so he was just unique, like him in a bubble. Like it's just he's so special.
So I actually got to perform in London last year, and that was really fun. The people in London, for some reason, I felt like they understood my comedy a little more. um, I don't know why, maybe because it's like a little bit more sarcastic, and I don't know, everyone there really appreciated it more. I think if I were to ever be able to tour, I would be going back there in London.
So what was it about that scene? I mean, obviously, to be able to ply your trade in a foreign land, right? That's cool, right? To learn to tell stories, abroad. That's amazing, and it opens up your, possibilities in terms of where you can ply your trade,
Mhm.
immensely. So, what was that experience to you, and how did you get contacted for such a thing?
So I was going on vacation in London already. So I started looking up all of the places that did comedy. And I was able to find a booker that was doing like an up and comer show. And so I got booked on it. Luckily, it was a terrifying experience just because, at least here, like I can kind of gauge the crowd because I don't know, I just am more familiar, and I wasn't as familiar with like people in London, their customs. I had to Google. I'm like, do they have Ben and Jerry's in London? Because like it's part of one of my jokes, and so like I had to start looking at my jokes in a different way. I'm like, does this even translate to another country at all? Um, so doing the show was fun. I got to meet comedians that were from over there, and they were really friendly and they were hilarious. I wish the pandemic was over so that I could have a chance to go back there. But now I can't plan anything until everything starts clearing up.
No, yeah, and that's it. Of course, everybody would love an opportunity to do whatever they do, especially abroad. I mean, heck, any place outside of their house, rather, is a bit of a vacation, right? But it's weird how that's become the norm. But yeah, I think it's amazing that you could have just went on vacation, right? You could have
Yeah.
just like I'm just footloose and fancy free, stop into a pub or two, stuff your face with fish and chips. I mean, I'm half Fijian, so that's what I do all the time, and it shows, my goodness. But anyway, um, but you chose to see like what my material will be like in a foreign country, how it'll translate. That's pretty cool.
It worked in London. It when I went to Bali the year prior to that, I tried to perform out there. There was where I was at, they didn't have any actual like comedy spots, but I was able to convince the person who was doing live music to let me have the mic on one of his breaks. So I performed out there. Um, and there were people from Bali there were people from Australia, there were people from South Africa. Um, the only people that understood my comedy out there was like a woman from Australia, and then she wanted me to go to Australia to perform, not because she had a club or anything. She just appreciated my comedy and was like, I know people who would appreciate you here, or there, because since we were in Bali. So it didn't work quite as well in that country. um, but that wasn't a show or anything. I kind of just hijacked someone's set while they were doing live music, but it was still a fun experience.
I could only imagine. I mean, the countries that you just described, it might as well be the model UN, right? And I mean, and then, to make matters even more precarious for yourself as a comedian, and like the curve of being a success or not was even greater. You did it in a foreign land, right? But you rose to the occasion and even gained one, at the very least, one new fan.
Definitely. And it's funny because I still am in contact with some of those people on Facebook now.
That's sick. That's so sick. My goodness. But I mean, so you've made it almost, I mean, a career up to this point of making a negative and turning it into a positive, right? So obviously, breaking your wrist or having that fracture in your wrist, and it took you away from jujitsu, that propelled you into doing an open mic, finding, kind of your way and your wings there, entering a roast battle, getting roasted, and then being able to steer your material to get back at somebody who roasted you. But you you're all about creating opportunity, right? And one of the very things that you've done in your time as a comedian was develop your own like comedy production company. Tell us about that.
So it's called DLG Co. And I coined it. I coined a term which has been around. I mean, I called it Laugh for a Cause because I do work a lot with the community. Um, before I was even doing comedy. So I work with a lot of nonprofits. I'm in nonprofits. I'm a board member of Apple Core Project. I'm a member of Latina Leaders of Kern County. I'm a member of the Junior League of Bakersfield. Those are the three main nonprofits that I'm involved in right now. So for the comedy shows, um, so during my time in comedy, I was also dealing with a lot of health issues. And I had never heard of the health issue that I had. And when I found the nonprofit for it, I was like, wow, it kind of just all tied together with comedy. And I was like, if I started, because I started producing shows, like you said. Um, and I was like, well, what if I start giving some of the proceeds from these shows to nonprofits? And what if not just giving them money, but actually letting people what the cause was each month? I wanted it to be a different local nonprofit each month because we have so many good people in Bakersfield that are like giving and want to help people, but nobody knows about them. Just like I had never heard about the foundation with the issue that I was dealing with at the time. So each month I started doing a show for a different cause, a different local nonprofit, and then they would get a portion of the proceeds. And sometimes they were free to come and see the show. They would come and see the show depending on what nonprofit, if they were able to or not. But I got to work with a lot of great people in Bakersfield, and I really love that side of it, like the giving back side of it.
I think that's amazing because obviously, I mean, your cards would have been completely different if you had just stayed in jujitsu, right? And you hadn't had that injury, but it literally, propelled your uh, what I believe is your kind of life's mission and purpose, in basically fostering a comedy community. Because I mean, I I lived there for 6 years, and I don't even remember a Bakersfield scene until you started posting about, this going on, or, having shows at Jerry's Pizza. And, those were usually reserved for punk and metal shows and all that jazz, and like now there's a scene. Now that's a place, not just, Gabriel Iglesias or Rogan or Theo Vaughn coming into the Fox Theater, but no, it's become a hub for comedy now.
While I would love to take credit for creating the scene, I did not create the scene. The scene was around long before I was. There were already key people involved in it, some that had moved away, some that had already been there building that community up. But sometimes, like, certain people do help play a part in just getting things more known, depending on their influences. And I think what really helped too was that the things that I was doing was like getting in the newspaper because it was about helping people, helping other local nonprofits.
No, and that's got to be gratifying, right? Because I mean, you know, following the DLG Facebook page, you've done stuff for like the Ronald McDonald House, amongst a litany of different organizations there and abroad. So I mean, did you think you'd ever be doing something like that?
I I never would have thought that this is where my life would have taken its turn. Like from that one incident of, and I actually think the person, whether they meant to hurt me on purpose or not during from that injury, like I thank them from the bottom of my heart because it truly changed my life. I was on like a set 9 to 5 working for local government. I resigned from that position after working there for almost a decade just to be able to follow things that I was more passionate about because I saw the difference in the quality of life that I was having.
And that's important, especially nowadays, in this kind of current pandemic,
Mhm.
stay at home order situation. It's the purpose. Like, yes, you can sit there and binge watch Tiny House Hunters on Netflix, which is something that I do often, total disclosure. But or you can, get out and become productive and figure out what you were meant to do. If it was a time allotment, I always used to say, to people that were like, if it's a time allotment, no matter what you're doing in your day, give yourself 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning or at the end, right? Just to devote to whatever it is that you want to do, or at the very least to pursuing or introducing new things that you could potentially do, right? And if it's a monetary kind of sum that you need to get you started, then basically save $5 out of every paycheck, or cash in your recycling or whatever, because by setting that goal for yourself, your life condition will be so much greater than it would be before with that, or without that particular goal that you set in mind.
And it's so interesting too. I hadn't even thought about people are so used to having the normal like 9 to 5 job, and it's safe, it's stable, you don't have to worry, you have health insurance, like everything is kind of just set for you. um my eyes didn't open up to be able to have like different jobs, like to not just have like one job, but to have like the job that pays your bills, but then to have another job that's kind of feeding your creativity, until I was dating an ex and he lived in West Hollywood. Um, and he said, like, everybody here doesn't just do one thing. He's like, everyone does everything here. Like, he's like, do you see those waiters? They are actors. They're writers, like they're all these different things, like these are just like one of the many things. And so that helped me tie in a lot of what I was doing. I was like, do I want to just have like that one job? I didn't mean to do like that signal, but do I want to just have that one job, or can I create something new? Can I create several streams of income? Which is what so many people are doing today. Like, they're learning that you don't have, not everybody has to fit inside that one little box.
No, yeah, it's crazy, man. Because over the last 5 months, I've like messed around and created logos and the swanky intro that we have here on According to Woods. I, you know,
It's
looking
very
into
nice.
patenting it. Yeah, looking into patenting like a couple different like business opportunities, and even probably it's weird. Somebody's African or Nigerian cousin called me with like this whole kind of deal that he can promise me land. If I just give him $2 a month, and I donate probably about $50 to him. But that's another story for another day. Uh, but it's doing things that, again, you probably wouldn't have entertained if not for the situation that you're in. And regardless of how this thing shakes out, one thing is absolutely true. You can either choose to come out like weaker, not to say weaker, but like defeated by this whole thing, or you could choose to become stronger in this whole time. And I like trying to figure out ways to come out the latter in this situation.
Right now is definitely a great time for like self-reflection and just getting yourself like healthy, watching your habits. Like, one thing that I did recently was go on a social media break, and I didn't tell anybody that I was doing it. I was offline for about a little over 30 days, and I started getting like messages, like people were texting me, they're like, are you okay? Because I didn't want to say that I was going on a social media break, because then if I did, and then like I was like, I'm just gonna like log back in and check something really quickly, then I would have felt like a hypocrite. So I just did it, and it felt really great, to be honest. It felt great to not have like the constant notifications. And right now too, with the elections coming up, like everything is so politicized online, and I'm just seeing like everybody's opinions, like from the left, from the right. I'm like, I really don't care. I don't want to see that every single time I log in. And so it was, this time for me was great to kind of just like push everything back and just kind of focus on myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my kind of social media engagement has just been podcast and memes. I figured, what is it? The native guy in Joe Dirt, he likes snakes and sparklers. So my snakes and sparklers are podcasts and memes, and none of them are horrible memes. Nothing to take the piss out of anyone. It's just like good, lighthearted. So either you're gonna see, potential podcast with somebody that and you like, or you're gonna laugh your ass off. Either way, that's fine with me. Let's ride with that.
Mhm. I I could still listen to podcasts even though I wasn't online though, because I'm subscribed to certain things. So it was hard to actually stay away from everything online because I don't know, do you ever get like FOMO, like fear of missing out? Like you wonder what everyone else is up to? Right now
Yeah,
is great with the pandemic because you really don't have to worry what everybody else is up to. We're all up to the same thing, which is nothing.
yeah, absolutely. No, and that's the other thing about like really ramping up the podcast deals is, they're like not only are people not going to go, no, I'm busy. Like I haven't got that at all. Thankfully, knock on wood, knock on wood. I haven't got like, oh, I'm washing my hair or whatever. Like, oh, wash your hair, come on the podcast like that, you know. Uh, but also, it's worked out because it didn't start out this way, but there's a method to the madness. Like I'll post a meme and I see who reacts, and then I'm like, I slide into those DMs. Yo, let's do a podcast. And it's 100% success rate. So, and I believe that I don't mind divulging in my like kind of method or whatever because I think that everyone should start a podcast if it's in you to do or a YouTube channel
Yeah.
or whatever it is. Reading a book, doing this, learning more about yourself, going on hikes, whatever it is. Like this is your time to figure that out. And then the rest of it, yeah. I mean, the pieces will fall as they may.
I am really interested to see what life is going to be like when things start to open up completely. I mean, this is unprecedented for us. We've never had to go through anything like this in our generation.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and that's also one of the the reasons, or I guess the things that this podcast has served is like checking in on my friends, and I'm like, hey, I'm sure you want to figure out what's going on with that person. Hey, why don't we just all do this together? And like, here's the place. You come on, blah blah blah. Any questions that need to be answered or whatever, like we'll do it here in real time, and then just be like, yeah, everybody's good, and then also figuring out like what Alabama is doing with this whole kind of shutdown deal, or how Taiwan has opened back. Like, and thankfully, if you had friends in different places, and just kind of gauging what things are going on and what have you, and it's just like if not for this podcast, I wouldn't have never known. You know,
It's funny. When you asked me to do the podcast, it was right after I came back from my social media hiatus.
I saw the post. I saw the post, and again, that was measured because actually I I noticed that you weren't on for a while because again, some of your commentary on just the things that may be were some of my favorite things to kind of watch and while I logged on, right? So when I saw that once that happened, I'm like, oh, like I almost turned into Bruce Springsteen and went like, is anybody alive out here? Like, you but with that being said, so I saw that I was like, oh, okay, she's cool. Let's see
You're
what
like,
she'll do.
that makes sense. And I felt bad afterwards because I didn't realize how many people that how many people care that you don't even realize. Because I had some people saying, "Hey, like I know we're not close or anything, and I miss like your funny content, but I also just wanted to see if you're okay." Because you know how you start accumulating so many friends, and it's like acquaintance or just like someone added you because someone shared something that was funny that you wrote, and your Facebook friend list becomes this huge group of half of the people you've never met.
Yes, and that's the thing that I hope we learn out of all of this is like we should be doing this together, right? We should be going through this as a community, not so much as like, oh, you're on this side, you're on that side, you believe this, you don't believe this, whatever. It's just like we're all trying to figure out. We don't know what's going on, and the only way that we're going to figure it out, no matter what you know election results, no matter what financial snafu is literally, unfolding, in front of us in real time, it's like, are you okay? You okay? Okay, let's get together and figure this out. And you might not agree with me, I might not agree with you, but at least we're talking.
And we don't have to agree with everybody all of the time. I mean, half of the stuff that people say online, they would probably never say in real life to a person's face.
Yeah.
I really didn't start thinking about that with the Junior League of Bakersfield. When the Black Lives Matter movement became really, really massive, they started having a race equity challenge for the members in the league to start having like the tough discussions with everybody. So it was a 21-day challenge. I just finished it, and so every day it was different types of articles, discussions that we had to have with like a group of people via Zoom. So we had to have like the tough conversations with each other, and it was really hard. And that it actually, that point got brought up, that people say things online that they would not have the audacity to say in person, like face to face with someone. They wouldn't be so bold with their convictions otherwise.
No, 100%. I mean, if you look at it, this is how I look at it, right? So if you're looking at it like a duel, right? And in public, everybody is, the rules of the duel, and they have the white glove, and they smack the other person in the face, right? And it's like, I challenge you, sir or madam, to a duel, right? Well, in social media, it's just like there's no challenge to a duel. It's just bam, right in the face, and that's what we're doing.
And with the social media, it's another beast too, because since there is no accountability, then it kind of ties into like cancel culture, I guess. You can call someone's place of employment, you can screenshot something, you can send it to somebody. It's kind of a whole other beast, for lack of a
Yeah,
better term.
yeah. It's funny. There's a like, I guess it would be a meme, right? But a picture floating around with a like the current day UFC title, which, oh, I can't stand that title. I like the old one better. The thing looks like a golden Dixie paper plate, like, honestly, or a hubcap. Either way, that's what the yeah, that's what the new UFC title looks like. And again, you disagree, that's cool, but you know where the DMs are. I'm just saying. But there's a photo floating around with like an altered version of that the UFC title, and it's just got a keyboard, right? Like a golden keyboard for like a keyboard warrior type challenge or championship. And the thing is, that's what people are, because it's totally anonymous, right? You can go on Twitter and 150 characters piss somebody off, and all it is an egg in your profile. You know?
But it's always interesting when people don't do it anonymously, and then they have like their whole business profile attached to everything. That's just not smart, because then people are like, oh, well, I'm not going to support your business anymore.
Yeah, yeah, and it's weird, the doxing thing, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's needed, right? Because maybe you wouldn't have supported, like my dad always told me, the way that you can show what you believe or what you don't believe is in your buying dollar, your buying
Mhm.
power. So it's in one hand, it's awesome because, like, maybe you wouldn't buy that coffee from that place because of this, right? So now but then on the catch 22 is now a business is suffering due to the fact that one person in that kind of realm said something that some people liked and a lot of people didn't like.
Mm-hmm. I think it was Goya. It's a it's a brand. They recently said something in favor of Trump, and they had the hugest backlash of Hispanic people saying, "I'm not going to support you anymore. I'm not going to buy your products anymore." Like it was this huge, huge thing. But then there's like, to play devil's advocate, Goya also donates to certain causes. They also provide, like, they're providing to charities as well. So then it's like, what do you actually do? Do you not support them? Do you support them? Because I mean, they are still creating good in the world by what they're doing. And I'm not saying that I support them either way. I'm just saying, like, there's two sides of it.
No, 100%. I think, the more and more that we figure out that, there's shades of gray. And it sounds
Yeah.
weird as adults to kind of say, but, you know, it is. There's shades of gray. Not everything is going to be, black and white or red or blue or whatever the case may be, whatever you choose or feel that you identify with, right? And there's going to be people that are completely like gung ho 100%, right? But then you piss somebody off and it all goes to hell, and the business that you created, the image that you cultivated, and all of these things, they become called into question.
Another interesting point that got brought up in that challenge was, for so long people have always said, like, you keep politics and religion out of, like, the workplace and other places. But then we were like, when we were talking amongst ourselves, we were like, but what if we were able to have those difficult conversations with people that we trusted, and we knew that they weren't bad people? Would we be able to hear them better versus someone that's online preaching what they believe in, and then, like, just not listening to it because you don't know this person at all? And when I say, like, talking to someone, I'm saying actually discussing it with them, not letting your emotions, like, get so crazy heightened where, like, you start attacking each other and using foul language, like, where you actually just have that discussion with someone you know, who you're
Yeah,
probably less likely gonna flip out on.
yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that I think that people forget, and again, it's one of those things that you could see. And I mean, everything is even more so, more heightened and charged up because obviously people are at home, people are losing their jobs, people are losing their businesses, and there's no real, kind of mode of action or method of action that people can take and be like, oh yeah, we're going to be good. My business could be saved, my job could be saved, or my company, doesn't have to lay off or whatever, right? And it's it's easier to kind of like engage in like angry discourse with each other than it is to like have those difficult, conversations amongst each other and go like, this is gonna hurt, but guess what? Like this is what's needed to kind of get us to the next echelon of where we're supposed to be.
And also checking in on each other.
That is key. That's crucial.
It makes me wonder because, like, I was so thankful. Like, I really thought it was nice that so many people were checking up on me to see if I was okay. And I felt bad because, like, I was just at home, like, reading, doing whatever, playing with my dog. Like, I was fine, but, like, people were actually genuinely concerned. And so I'm like, I should really start checking on people more. Like, even if it's just a text message, like, we have all of this technology literally to see how people are doing. We can FaceTime, we can be on a podcast, um, there's Zoom, all of this stuff to check on people. But we're kind of still focused on ourselves and just posting, like, what we want to talk about.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I mean, again, with these, like you said, there are so many ways that we can connect. Let's use those to connect, those mediums to connect rather than to figure out like, what am I going to get
Rather,
pissed off at today?
like, rather than pushing everyone away.
100%, 100%. Now, obviously, there have been so many that haven't pushed you away. They've actually pushed you in an upward trajectory, right? So let's get some shout outs out of the way.
Okay. So where do I even start? Very happy to be a part of Apple Core Project and the things that they're doing for our community. We have a community garden in collaboration with Bakersfield Recovery Services, and it is amazing. I got to be there when we planted everything. I haven't really been back since. And I'm super thankful to be in the junior league of Bakersfield. I really appreciate the race equity challenge. I recently went back to school and I took an early Chicano history course, and that really opened my eyes to everything that United States history is missing, like all of the marginalized groups. So I'm really happy to be a part of the junior league as well, and also the Latina leaders of Kern County. They put me in a leadership program. All of these nonprofits that I'm a part of do amazing things for our local community. Um, super, super thankful for my partner at Room 82, because without him, I would not be a part of Room 82. Justin Cummings, he's also the owner of Rio Acai and all of the different locations around Bakersfield. And he's also part owner of Beacon Studios. Super thankful to Andrew Boydston for roasting me and kind of lighting that fire in me to get out and do comedy. A huge shout out to Chris Flail, because he's the first host that I spoke to when I started doing comedy and kind of like nudged me. Fun fact about him, he went to Bakersfield Brazilian Jiu Jitsu for a short stint as well.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
isn't it? It's
Yeah.
kind of like it ties everything together in a weird way. Um, just thankful to everybody who supported me in comedy and all of my friends and family, especially my
That,
parents, because when I told them I resigned from my full time job of almost a decade, they took it rather well.
that could have gone another way, right?
It totally could have. And also my son, because he's my biggest supporter.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, he's awesome. Love seeing your guys' interaction on the social media. So yeah, shout out to him. And again, shout out to Justin and Sophia Cummings of Rio Sai. Actually, a funny story. There is when Justin had the Mataleo Fight Shop. That's actually where one of the places when the game room or the mothership weren't having classes on particular days, we would go over to Mataleo and roll, right?
That's
And it
so
was right
funny.
across the street from Bakersfield High. And Justin, and he was still pretty new in terms of his videography career. He had just had the neck surgery, and he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna do a commercial for this for the shop, right? Would you like to play Hanato Laranj?" So there, if you look in the YouTube kind of sphere, you'll see this guy in a Mataleo Fight Shop commercial, both doing the voiceover and uh, playing Hanach. So
I'm
there you
totally
go.
going to be Googling that tonight.
There you go. I'll make it easy. I'll send you the link. But yeah, so and I mean, I remember when Rio Asai was just a trailer,
And
and
it
that's
was
what
it was
we.
called Roots then
Yeah,
when it was a
Roots.
trailer.
Yes, absolutely.
I
And
It's funny that you bring that up, because so like I went with Sophia to our very first open mat. I don't remember which one, but it was out of town. And I was sitting on the couch talking to Justin, and he was talking about Roots Acai. Like he's like, and you pronounce it this way. He's like, it's spelled this way, but you pronounce it this way. Like I remember him like kind of like being very adamant about how you pronounce it. And it's crazy to see how far that has come.
and how many locations right now?
I think they have 3 locations because there's Chester, there's the one in Rosedale, and there is another one. I don't remember like what street it's on, but it's the drive-through one.
Yes, that's almost off of White Lane, I want to say.
It's off of White Lane. I just don't remember. Is it? I can't remember the cross street, but what I think it's off of White Lane.
Yeah, off of White Lane by the Food Max, like in the same shopping center as the Food Max.
I think it's in Albertsons.
Is it Albertsons now? It's
Yeah.
been a while. It's been a while.
You're forgiven. You haven't been in Bakersfield for a while.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
But
But
they are like a insane power couple. Like they are amazing.
yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. And every time that I, head up the 5 to the 99, I make sure I grab an acai because it's just, I'm just like, these are my peeps, man, and they're doing it. And I believe there was even a location in Fresno too.
Oh, I forgot about that location. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, man, they're just moving and shaking, man. But obviously, you're making moves of your own. So for anyone, and I don't know why they shouldn't, but for those who haven't already followed you on social media and to find out what BLG is doing, what Laughter for a Cause is doing, and now that you're off of your hiatus, where can they find you?
You can find me at Jess Another Face on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The comedy page is DLG Comedy on Instagram. Or you can go to laughforacause.com. All of our shows are on hold though. Obviously because of the current circumstances. I'm not gonna put anyone at risk, at least until after everything's over.
Yes, and then you can be risked to be roasted, essentially.
And then you can find me on Facebook, Jessica Della Garza. You can also look up Room 82 at Room 82 on Instagram or on Facebook.
Dang right. Dude, it's an honor and privilege to have you on. I can't wait to see once everything opens back up. And I mean, was definitely getting the invites. Like I love you for sending me an invite and whatever. And I was like, man, I was working at MMA show down here or whatever, but I was gladly taking the drive. So we can't wait to see what you guys do when you guys resume operations. And again, thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with us here at According to Woods.
Thank you for having me.
And this has been According to Woods with Jessica De La Garza. Thank you guys for watching, and like, share, and subscribe with like-minded people this very podcast here. So as the great Seeger would say, that's all for now.